With us on the phone, a fire expert, Glenn Corbett. Thank you so much for taking some time to talk to us, Glenn. Can you tell us what you're seeing here? Does it appear that there is anything suspicious as to what has happened here this morning in Paterson?
Well, it's, all the images, of course, are very indicative of a gas explosion. No doubt about that. Of course, there'll have to be a subsequent investigation to find out, was it in fact natural gas, which it probably was, but to verify that's what it was and find out exactly, how is it that this gas leaked into this building, basically, and caused this explosion.
Well, I find it interesting, Glenn, it's Brian Coneybear, that neighbors said they not only smelled gas, but at least two of them said they heard the gas, too. If you hear hissing, what does that mean to you?
Well, certainly if you hear hissing noise, I mean, that's obviously people are hearing the actual break itself, right? So there's a broken gas line somewhere, and and of course that's the noise that it would make. So it's very consistent with what we're seeing here. The fact that you notice that the roof is sort of off to the side, almost into the street, basically, which of course would happen when the explosion occurred, lifted the entire roof off, and then it landed several feet away there. So, yeah, very like natural gas explosion. Of course, the fire department had to verify that, that in fact there weren't any people still in there when it blew up. And they're going to need heavy equipment to do that. This is a pretty massive amount of debris here that they're going to get to, so they'll probably end up bringing cranes and things like that apart so they can search for any potential victims that may still fit.
Glenn, we did see some firefighters removing debris by hand early on. It appears that they have stopped doing that. And what does that say to you, that they're not in there digging right now? Does that reduce the chances of there being someone inside?
Well, basically, firefighters are trained, in a situation like this, either a building collapse or explosion like this, that they'll do quick searches of what we call surface victims, basically, people that are near the surface that can easily be retrieved or removed from the area and stuff. But this is a pile of debris that's almost, a story high, basically, and there's a bunch of layers of things that they're just simply going to have to go down and search out. The images that you're showing right now, of course, is the adjacent building, all the damage that was done there. You can notice that the walls actually pushed in on the second floor there, that two-story home. And so there's very likely structural damage in that building as well. I'd be very surprised if they ended up having to demolish that building that they're pouring water on adjacent to the original building.
Glenn, as we continue to talk to you, we have news that we want to report that there have been no injuries in this house explosion in Paterson. 2 homes destroyed, but everyone was able to evacuate. So that is some good news this morning, that there are no injuries in this.
That word just coming in just now, but certainly that would explain why firefighters aren't quite as frantic as they may have been at the very beginning, don't you think, Glenn?
Yeah, it's just that you could see that they're searching different, that are close to that large pile there in the back of the remaining amounts of the building and everything. They're going to have to go through that. It's just natural standard procedures, just to make sure, double check the fact there wasn't anybody, again, who may have been in there that may still actually be in the debris and stuff. So it's good news that, that there's no reported injuries, but firefighters always err on the safe side just to make sure and carefully go through that. But again, we'll need heavy equipment to do that this afternoon, likely.
Obviously, Glenn, isn't the concern now this house explosion, how this happened? We reported, of course, the house explosion last week with a devastating result. How are these prevented? What can be done going forward?
Well, certainly, there are issues with infrastructure in our region. A lot of these, particularly Paterson and New York and places like that, a lot of these are older buildings, still have a lot of the original services from the gas company in them. And so certainly, that's a concern. That's why a lot of the gas companies are replacing a lot of the public mains out the street. But, in a situation like this and everything, the only thing you can do basically is, of course, is a building owner's properly maintained system. And, some of these systems are almost 100 years old in some cases, and they have to think seriously about making sure that, in fact, they're not going to experience a problem like this. But unfortunately, this is happening more and more often. My own career, I've seen it happening in my own little town in Bergen County. We had an explosion like this a few years ago. So they're happening with some more regularity, and I would imagine part of it has to do, again, the age of these systems and the fact that folks are, making upgrades to buildings and things like that.
Certainly, if someone left a stove on without a pilot light, that could fill a home with gas over time. But that hissing sound indicates a severed pipe, don't you think? And that's going to take some type of impact, don't you think?
Yeah, the fact that they could hear hissing sound to me is exactly what you said, is that there was a broken gas main here somewhere that they were able to hear it. It may have been actually near the front or actually even in the street. We don't know yet. Because gas, unfortunately, has a nasty habit of following pipelines, even if the buildings basically and filling up spaces. So this, of course, the next several weeks there'll be an investigation. The state of New Jersey will come in with the Board of Public Utilities and look at exactly how this transpired, how it came to explode. But as you mentioned, the fact that there was a hissing sound is very, it's very indicative of broken gas main, obviously, and they'll be looking. I'm sure they'll be looking for that, and trying to find out if that in fact was the case.